The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that whoever builds a mosque for Allah, Allah will build for him a similar house in Jannah. And we know the great reward that will not only be gained, but rather will fill your grave after your death. Whenever someone prays there, whenever someone gives shahada in the masjid, whenever someone learns something in the masjid, yes, that will be something that you'll have on your scale. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? Today we're going to be speaking a little bit, having a conversation about Iran and what we think might happen next. And I'm joined, of course, with none other than the star himself, a man who's been covering current affairs, and people all over the world have been tuning into his fantastic channel, talking about all kinds of issues, Iran related, Pakistan related, India related, Israel related, Palestine related. We're talking about Zishan Ali. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
How are you doing?
Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Sometimes we have to say the good things, you know.
Alhamdulillah.
Sometimes we have to say good things.
Alhamdulillah.
Now, let's start by asking you, what do you think is going to happen next? We've already seen, okay, to summarize, we've already seen some days of barraging and intercepting of the Iron Dome and the David Sling and the multiple layers and the arrow by a country in Iran that has probably got one of the most, if not the most advanced indigenous missile creation in the Muslim world. In terms of ballistic missiles, I think the conversation is more limited. I think that there's no question that Iran has the best ballistic missiles probably in the Muslim world and probably even in the Middle East. They could even compare and be better than the Jericho missiles that the Israelis have. Maybe, yes, the Jericho ones can reach a further target, but in terms of precision and power, you could make the argument for the Iranian one. And they've been penetrating, haven't they? They've gone through and gone to Haifa, they've gone to Tel Aviv and different places. It has shown that it's not impenetrable, this missile defense system of the Israelis. It's not an impenetrable system. And that's one thing I think that's taken a lot of commentators by surprise, considering how much emphasis Israel has put on this particular missile defense system. But there's escalation here. What do you think is going to happen next?
I think you made a really good point towards the end, which was that it's taken a lot of people by surprise that they have been able to penetrate the Iron Dome, because the Iron Dome has been marketed as kind of divine in some words, that it cannot be penetrated. That's it. Israel is, it's a lot of exaggeration mixed with a lot of hypotheticals that's used to keep people at bay. However, like you mentioned, in the last few days, we have seen the Iron Dome being penetrated a lot and penetrated precisely as well. Today, we found out that one of the headquarters of Mossad, the Unit A200, and certain, intelligence places have been attacked. So that is definitely happening to such a degree that
it's never happened to Israel before, has it?
It's like a lot of commentators are saying Israel is just used to fighting defenseless children. Yeah. They haven't had to face in recent times a formidable opponent and they've become too lax. They become too lazy. Like we saw recently with the whole Palestine thing, all they could do was produce these, their military were too busy doing these dancing TikTok videos. They become a joke. However, if you now contrast that with Elon Levy, who used to be the former spokesperson of Israel.
He debated Mehdi Hassan, right?
He debated Mehdi Hassan, and he made a lot of media appearances on behalf of Israel. We saw him come out of his home in a vest and pajamas, saying my neighborhood has just been blown up. So the contrast is
it's unbelievable.
It's extraordinary.
It's the mental weakness of a lot of the Zionist proponents. It's like you've just essentially leveled Gaza to the ground. You've killed 75,000 people. You've killed 20,000 children, babies. I don't know how many thousands you've killed. and probably that's a conservative estimate, right? And now, not even a percentage of 1% of that has been afflicted to your cities, and look at how you're behaving.
Look, it's you know what the most sad thing is? It's insulting the intelligence of the American people. That's what it is.
Yes.
Glenn Greenwald, he's a very famous political commentator. Him, amongst many others, have picked up on a clip. Same with George Galloway, who was telling Piers Morgan to his face that 3 months ago, Tulsi Gabbard, who was the head of the American intelligence agency, said they do not have nuclear weapons. She made it clear. Yeah. Now, Donald Trump, when he's cut short his G7 meeting, he's on the plane and someone asks him, your own intelligence head was saying this. She goes, no, she got it wrong. So I'm sorry, one second. So on the one hand, you have your intelligence agency whose sole function it is to be intelligent and to know things that you can't know. So this bumbling buffoon knows more than the intelligence agency. You know the reality is? The reality is they're trying to put the wool over the people's eyes. Because the people knows, bro.
Yeah.
They know 30 years ago.
Exactly, yeah.
He's been saying the same thing, Netanyahu. He
Yeah.
published a book in which he said, about 3-4 years left. That was like 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things on this. Is the pretense of going in because of nuclear weapons is
weapons of mass destruction.
Mass destruction is the same kind of regurgitation that we've heard in the Iraq War, which was one of the biggest. I would say it was the major downfall of Tony Blair. Do you know? It seems to me like if Donald Trump does decide, and this is one of the eventualities, although I do think it's more remote. If they do decide for direct military involvement, it will be as much, if not more, an Achilles heel for him as it had been for Tony Blair at the time. Because people don't realize before the Iraq War, Tony Blair had a serious momentum, actually. He propounded this third way of labor and all these kind of things. And they were really strong. Even from a foreign policy perspective, what they'd done in Kosovo was very much respected in the international community. So he had done this, and it basically broke his legacy. It destroyed his career, and it made him a laughingstock. This is likely to happen even more so to Donald Trump if he does decide, and I do think it's a remote eventuality, but nevertheless.
I 100% agree with you. Why? Because people are showing when Trump was coming into office, one of his main things was to set himself apart from his predecessors.
Anti-war.
Anti-war. I'm president of peace. I want to stop all this. I want to put America first. Now, that's the reason why. When you've got MAGA proponents like Charlie Kirk, when they are putting polls on their Twitter X page,
who hasn't responded to my challenges?
He hasn't. He's a coward.
Yeah, coward. Yes, absolute coward.
He's a goddamn coward. So he put out a poll on his page. The reason why I'm bringing him up is because he's very kind of he was instrumental. One of the guys that was there at the Trump campaign helping him get elected. He's up there, and with him, he put out a poll asking, are you for us joining and attacking Iran or against? A resounding 90% said on his poll they are against. Thereafter, he did another poll saying what would happen to MAGA, i.e. Trump's vote base. And 55% said it would become divided. And that's why Tucker Carlson is publicly against Donald Trump to such a degree that he is publicly rebuking him.
And Trump is responding?
Trump is publicly rebuking Tucker Carlson. And then you've got other right-wing commentators like the Hodge twins saying, I don't get it. Why is he responding like this? So Candace Owens is also against it. Nick Fuentes, Steve Bannon. These are heavyweights in the right-wing movement that are against this, and they are consistent. Now, Trump understands this. That's why he's losing it on X, responding to Tucker Carlson and getting angry over here, losing it with Emmanuel Macron, that, he's because he wants to broker a ceasefire, supposedly Macron said, and Trump is rebuking him, saying, no, he doesn't know.
Because Trump seems to be wanting to use this as a leverage for negotiation.
I mean, a lot of people are saying, including his best friend, well, ex-best friend, Elon Musk, that he was on the Epstein files. Well, people are definitely questioning that someone's got something on him for somebody to do such a U-turn. And Putin, in one of his interviews, he said some American presidents are really good people until they get elected. When they get elected, then the people in the black suits come in and then everything changes.
So you mentioned Putin. Okay. There's two kind of narratives relating to Iran in the region. One of them is that Iran has a strong relationship with Russia and with China, and of course with Pakistan as well. But more so for our purposes here, Russia and China, two superpowers in a sense. And the other one is actually that's an overestimated kind of thing. And in fact, Iran is quite isolated. They don't really have that much backing from China and from Russia. And so some people think that if there was kind of intervention from the United States, or things escalated to a very high level, that if not directly, indirectly, China would get involved by giving some, weaponry or something to them, as they did with Pakistan. And others say, no, they're not invested as much with Iran as they are with Pakistan. Where do you stand on this? What do you think is the correct view, really, on this?
So when it comes to Iran, what's very important to understand is America, their attention, if you look in the last 3-4 months, has been on China. Let's ban TikTok. Let's ban Huawei. Let's put tariffs on them. Then they were the tariff wars, and then they keep bringing up Taiwan and these disputed regions. So America is hell-bent on making China's life miserable. Yeah. On the other hand, you've got America and the European bloc that's hell-bent on making Russia's life miserable. If now something else is happening that's taking their attention away from that, it makes sense for Russia and China to assist in that diversion, to drain the resources of their opponents as well as their time and efforts, so it gives them enough time and opportunity to regroup and re-strategize. So they definitely will be happening. However, when it comes to economy and stuff like that, China is heavily reliant upon Western values and companies. Like people are saying BlackRock and these are Vanguard, these companies are heavily invested in China and they influence China significantly. So if China was to do something, they would have to do it underground, otherwise it would fare consequences, and consequences would result. And if China was to help anybody, as blatantly, they would have helped Russia. So, but people know that they are supporting Russia underground. But I mean, realistically speaking, they have to help Iran because Iran, China, Russia are the counter power to America. So definitely, I believe they'd be assisting them in some means. It's not going to be as overt and as obvious as possible. But then let's see, because only time
what would be
will really
different
tell.
with like Iran and Iraq? So if Iran is so instrumental, why did these great powers allow Iraq to be overrun by the United States and not have a similar kind of feeling with them?
That's a good point. But at that time, I don't think China and Russia were getting the pressure that they are getting today.
Okay.
From half of the globe. I mean, what Russia's been put through, what China is being put through. China knows. I mean, you've got documentaries done by John Pilger that are showing that there is a noose of American bases around China. China should know that there is something impending. And that's why they are very kind of cautious with Pakistan as utilizing them as a counterbalance. And there is a lot of give and take. And Pakistan's neighbor is Iran as well. So it's within the interests of Pakistan that there is stabilization on that front, because India, of course, they've got issues with India on one side. They're not exactly best buddies with Afghanistan, and they're surrounding them, they have issues, even economically as well. So it makes sense for them to assist Iran in some way without knowing. So I guess what I'm saying is that if people realize that when and if Iran was to go down, then it's open season in the Middle East, because Israel believes in something called Greater Israel, like the promised land. It incorporates Mecca, Medina, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, all of these places. And we know countries like Jordan are very weak. Egypt, very weak militarily. Compared to, I would say, Iran. Am I wrong?
I would say that definitely from a ballistic missile perspective. This. Egypt is only allowed to have missiles that go 300 kilometers. Okay.
It's a part of the Camp David Accords.
It's not really part of the Accords per se, but what it is that the United States gives them like 1 point something billion per year, right?
What did they do with that?
And they are the ones who supply them with the F-16s and Rafales. That's their main kind of like 5-star.
The Rafales come from France.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Rafales come from France, but they get F-16s from America. And then you've got the missiles that they get can only go 300 kilometers, which, I don't know, is it from London to Birmingham or something like that?
Wow.
So in order for Egypt to be able to attack Israel with missiles, they'd have to essentially get into Gaza, or let's say get on the tip of the Sinai Peninsula, and they would have to kind of move all the way. And by the time they do all of that, then Israel would have spotted them a long time ago. So they've orchestrated it, and they've created an architecture with Egypt. I mean, in terms of the fighter jets, I think you could make an argument that the Air Force, the Egyptian Air Force, is somewhat formidable. It's not as formidable as the Israeli one in terms of technology, but it's somewhat formidable because of these weapons. But once again, if you can't use, because the thing is, a lot of it, like the Rafales and the F-16s, they have these system updates, and the Americans and the French are responsible for those. And so if they jam them, they can jam the systems. They can do certain things. Now they do have other Russian air jets as well. They can use them, but they won't be as effective in this way. That's why actually Egypt wanted to buy some new planes from Russia, which prompted a kind of response from America, and they tried to stop that because they knew it could change the balance of power. Now, what Pakistan did that Egypt didn't do, which was very good, is it diversified its portfolio and it got weapons from China. Egypt tried to go in this kind of direction with Russia a little bit, but it didn't do a proper job. So right now, in terms of what Egypt would have to do, let's say hypothetically, if it were, allied in that way, and if it were politically hostile to Israel for now, they would have to go in, boots on ground, or they would have to use the Air Force. They couldn't really use missiles. The best country in the Middle East to use missiles is Iran, because they have developed, they understood that this face-off was very likely, and they've developed missiles that are very technologically advanced, world-class, probably second only to, China and South Korea and, America and these kinds of things. But it's up there, and Russia is probably tier 2. Like after that, it's the Iranian missiles and so on. It's comparable with the Israeli equivalent, for example. So their missiles will go through. The Egyptian missiles will not go through. It will not even reach Israel, frankly.
I think another point to add would be that if Israel does gain control over Iran, that threat is neutralized, because Israel requires the help of America. It's constantly knocking on the door of America. And if that threat becomes neutralized and then they're able to take more weaker opponents, then Israel becomes unleashed from America's power, like one analyst put it. And he said that Israel will become more uncontrollable for us. And at least now, to some degree, we had influence and control over it. But you look at the UK and compared to Israel, UK doesn't have any, significant pull over Israel that, say, America does. But once Israel becomes more stronger, they believe they're the chosen ones. You know what I mean? And if you believe that you're the chosen one, then that's it. Like everybody else is beneath you.
There's an expansionist policy.
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, for example, another contender here is Turkey as well. And Turkey's Air Force, their drones, if there were to be some kind of a face-off between Turkey and Israel, I I don't think Israel would want to have a kind of like a multi frontier face off with all these countries around them, because Turkey is formidable and probably is the favorite in that. Like in terms of, because where would the war take place? It would take place over the sea. It wouldn't take place on the land with Turkey. They'd meet on the sea, and it's.
But Turkey is very restricted. Like the Awam, the people know what happened in Syria, and
and that's another place it could take place. I mean, Turkey can go into Syria, and they can go through the Golan as well. So I mean, look, I think they realize. Look, this is the first time Israel has been punched by a heavyweight. It's a heavyweight power that's been fighting lightweights all its time. Hamas is a militia group. It's unbelievable that they're even in the fight for this long. It's unbelievable. It's shocking that 2 years on, Hamas is even in the fight. And I'm seeing in Al Jazeera Arabic, they're shooting down or they're blowing up tanks and stuff like that. They're sniping people. I'm not sure if you've seen those videos. But how can they still be doing this, after 2 years? This is a militia group. This is homemade equipment. This is not a state actor. This is not a territorial army.
And even Iraq was not a walk in the park for them. Afghanistan, sure as hell, was not a walk in the park for them. They say that if anybody wants to see what failure looks like, imagine, going in, removing a government, fighting them for a decade, only to replace the previous government with the same government.
And another point to be noted here with this is that if you've got a huge superpower like America, you mentioned Afghanistan, insurgencies are very difficult to maintain because the home side is the infinite player. So they're fighting for forever. Whereas the side that's invading, the invading side, is the finite player. So in the case of America going into Afghanistan, they were unsuccessful. Like, if we're being honest, like, I know some people get carried away with some hyperbolic political analysis, but the chances that a 6 million country population is going to be able to overrun, say, Egypt's 120 million population is actually slim to none. Zero, actually. They can't. You wouldn't even be able to occupy it. There's too many people.
But here's the thing: now that they've got Daddy Trump behind him, who in the space of like an hour has released 3-4 tweets in which he's saying we have control over the skies, and the people of Tehran, they need to leave.
Yeah, but even with him, like, what they can do to these countries, which is realistic, is what they did to Iraq. They could destroy it. They can take away its resources.
They're saying
and stuff.
even Khomeini, we can easily take him out.
Yeah.
And quite possibly if they've taken out other people.
It's very possible. I mean, this stuff is possible. Do you know what I think is also possible? It's a remote possibility, but I think it is possible that they will actually deploy a tactical nuclear weapon in Iran, because they need to, in order to get to their, the site of where they say their nuclear weapons, because they put it underneath a mountain. And most commentators say that you cannot get down there unless you employ a tactical nuclear weapon. So they may think that, okay, this is do or die. We need to do this. And this will be the worst thing that happens. Even if it's a remote possibility, it's worth mentioning. It's an eventuality at the end of the day. They might do that. And what might be a surprise to them is that, and we've been discussing this before the show, but what might be the surprise to them is that Iran already has nuclear weapons of mass destruction. Yeah. And not only...
If they're smart, they would do.
Yeah, I think it's a high possibility. I agree with you, bro. Like, they would never declare it. If they had it, they would never declare it.
Just like Israel. But the difference with Iran is Iran has signed a non-proliferation treaty. They allow IAEA to come in and check everything out. Israel does none of that. It hasn't signed anything. It doesn't allow anybody to come in. And most people are unanimous. I would say it is unanimous that people are saying that Israel has nukes. In fact, they have something called the Samson option. How do you have the Samson option that's predicated on nukes if you're saying with the other cheek you don't have nukes? It's a contradiction.
It is a contradiction. And, this whole nuclear discussion, if it's true that they fear the nuclear thing so much right now, which happens to be convenient timing, then why not anything about Pakistan? Pakistan has about 140 nuclear warheads, and let's say, look, you've had hardliners take premiership in Pakistan in the 80s and 90s. You have what's his name, Zia al-Haq, for example, right? He was a hardliner, and so for an example, how plausible is it that another hardliner could come into Pakistan? There could be a regime change, and they could decide, you know what, we're going to take action towards Israel. That's more of an impending threat. Pakistan is more of an impending threat, an imminent threat to Israel than Iran is.
Look, they believe they're speaking to nursery children. Yeah, these questions have had ample rebuttals to them, and the Israelis have been told, what you believe that dropping a few bombs is going to wipe out their nuclear knowledge. Like, is this what you're having us believe? Then they have to keep modifying their answers because they don't believe that the people are talking back and they're challenging us.
That's true.
We thought we owned all your Congress people.
No, you're right.
But then they're switching it now and they're saying no, of course we can't wipe out the knowledge of the nuclear weapons, and of course we can't, but even if we set them back a little, but that's not the pretense that you've gone in with. And now what they're saying is, and that's why Netanyahu is addressing Iran, the Iranian people saying, we want to remove your regime, we want a regime change. I'm sorry, who are you? Who are you to be dictating terms for which regime is good or bad when you've been conducting a genocide for the last couple of years, that you've got the International Court of Justice and International Criminal Court.
It's that colonial behavior.
Putting out arrest warrants for you people. These are international courts.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, who are you? And what's the other country? The only country in the world to have dropped an atomic bomb.
Yeah.
That's America right there.
You've got the most aggressive player in the region in Israel. It's the most aggressive player in the region. It's bombed, I don't know, how many countries? They've bombed Yemen, they've bombed Syria, they've bombed Lebanon,
and they bombed the
Gaza.
USS Liberty as well. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. I mean, this we're just talking about in the last year. And then Iran, they've bombed 5 countries in the last year.
No, but here's the point that I'm saying, that look, they bombed all these countries. Americans think that they can't bomb them. What about when there was the British mandate in Palestine? They used to bomb the British. The British used to get bombed, the King David Hotel. People are saying, why is it the Queen never set foot in Israel? Why? In all of the years, she never set foot there. Why did initially Charles have an issue with them as well? Why? Because they remember, type in and search terrorism before 1980s. Yeah, more specifically around the 1930s, 1940s, it was these Zionists, the Stern Gang, Ergun, and led by Menachem Begin.
Yeah, you can read my book that I've written, The Double Standard, as well. It's got all these kind of things in there as well.
Okay.
But on that note, on that bombshell, no pun intended, we will leave it there. We hope and pray that the people of Iran, the people of Palestine, the people of Syria, the people of all that region are safe.
Ameen.
We pray that, because this is a difficult time for all of them. We hope for peace in the region. We really do, because a lot of people have seen suffering.
Yeah.
But we also hope for retribution.
Oh, yes.
I have to say this.
We want this.
And we want retribution, and proper, just retribution and justice to be delivered to the abominable and condemnable state, or quote-unquote state, Zionist entity, Israel. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey you! Are you wasting your time on social media again? Your brothers and sisters in Islam Net from Norway are establishing a masjid, a dawah center. Establishing a masjid to convey the message of Islam is one of the best deeds a Muslim can do. There's a huge need for it in Norway. You know this and I know this. So that makes the reward even greater. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.